Welcome to another episode of Inspirational Journeys of the Best Minds. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Rochelle Barreto, founder of Fractional Fusion. With more than 25 years of experience leading global brands and driving growth across consumer businesses, Rochelle now partners with founders, CEOs, and investors to help organizations scale through innovation, commercial focus, and consumer-centric strategies. So, Rochelle, thank you for joining me today. We're super excited to have you here and hear about your journey.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm gonna dive right in the questions. Let me start with the first question. What did you want to become as a kid, and how did you get started in your career?
Hmm. Okay, so they are quite unrelated, but I'll walk you through the story of the dreams I dreamt as a kid and then where I actually started off my career. So, as a child, there were two hobbies that I pursued. One was in ballet, and one was in ice skating. So, I always dreamt, especially when I was on the ice, and that freedom that it gave me, that one day I would be a figure skater. And I watched a lot of the figure skating on TV back then and lived that dream for many, many years. But unfortunately, there was a different path that I ended up with. So yeah, that was a dream that never quite materialized, or at least not yet, right? So that's what I looked at as a child. And then how did I start off my career? Was actually a bit accidental. I was in university and it was summer and I live in Dubai and I lived in Dubai back then as well. And a friend of mine was working in advertising and asked if I wanted to do a summer internship for 2 months with J. Walter Thompson was what it was called back then, a part of the WPP group. So I said, yeah, why not? I had time on my hands and it was just going to be quite hot in Dubai. So I said, why not do the summer internship? So that's where I started off. And fast forward, I spent my first decade of my career with JWT, which I think now is called VML. And yeah, that was how I started off my career, not intentionally, but accidentally. And it just something that I loved doing once I was in there and continued with them for the first decade of my career.
Amazing. I love the part about figure skating, and I think that the best chances in life we get by accident, right?
Yes, so yeah, I still hold on to that dream. I haven't gone onto the ice
Yes,
for
it's a
many,
dream.
many years, but yeah, you never know.
Yes, hope you can do that one day. All right. My second question is, where did you grow up? You just mentioned that you grew up in Dubai, but how did that affect who you are today?
Sure. So, yeah, I did grow up in Dubai. I'm one of the few expats who has been quite fortunate to call it home since the early 80s. So, in terms of how it has affected who I've become, I think there's a few things I can just draw on some parallel experiences. The first is the city itself, and the privilege of being a part of the transformation of Dubai over the years, from the early 80s all the way to now, has been really fascinating to see the transformation and evolution of the city. And putting it onto the worldwide map today has been truly a privilege to be a part of that journey. So that's the first thing, because I think in terms of what that's helped me understand is the ability of potential and realizing the dreams we dream. The second one is growing up with very, very diverse cultures, be it at school, and then even when I went into the work environment. I really thrive in those areas and I appreciate the diversity of cultures, but the diversity of thought and perspective. So that's really one of the big lessons learned. I'll also say I think what I enjoyed was growing up in the Dubai in the 80s and 90s was a different experience to what my daughter's experiencing today when
Yes.
she grew up much later in the city. So I think really starting from humble beginnings and learning the importance of having to put in that hard work very early in your life, and really enjoying that aspect of what Dubai had then, which was a really small community where you appreciated and valued the simplicity of what life was back then is something I really, it's quite nostalgic when I think back about that stage. So yeah, so that's some of the things I've carried forward with me in life.
Beautifully put.
Thanks.
Okay. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced early in your career, Rochelle, and how did you overcome those?
Okay. So this one's quite vivid because it's still some baggage I carry with me till
Of
today.
course.
So in back in 2000s, I was in my agency world, and I was a young mum back then. And I think the biggest challenge that I faced at that stage was firstly just going back to a full-time role just 2 months after my maternity leave, which was really difficult. And then going back to a role that was about 10 to 12 hours a day of that crazy agency life that we often live, and some of us still live in today. So I think that was a massive challenge because obviously I missed out a lot of the special moments with my daughter back then. Now, how did I overcome it? I think it was more how did I cope? I don't think I've overcame it, but I think it was how did I cope? So the first thing, I was really fortunate to have an amazing support system in the family with my husband and my mum, who really played an active role when I couldn't be around, being at the agency then. So I think that's the first thing of having the right support network. The second is really how to cope with the guilt. And I think what I really do empathize with is mums in the workforce today. It's that invisible pressure and the guilt that we all still carry. So I think just being able to cope with that, I will tell you, it was hugely challenging. There were many, many, many moments when I considered, okay, this isn't going to work. But I was very ambitious with a career as well, and calling in on that support. And I think making up for it over the weekends with my daughter was something I often did. But I will tell you, that's a regret I still carry till today because I think I often reflect back and say, I wish I had done that a little differently. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. If I could name one, that would be one very early in my career.
That's very humane, and it's an experience I'm sure all mother or working mothers go through. But thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that.
no, sure.
Okay, Rochelle, so let me follow up on this. Do you remember any specific moment or experience that was a true turning point in your career and life?
Sure. Yes. So there was one experience that was very formative for me in terms of my career evolution as well. So that was when I took on an international assignment with my corporate role back then. This was back in 2018, and I moved to the UK along with my family. Now, the advice I got at that time was try to keep one thing constant, right? So I was anyway going to change countries, so very different cultures to immerse into. And ideally, I would have then continued a path in marketing, which was where my expertise lie. But given that this was an accelerated assignment, I decided to make the most of the opportunity and also went after a very differentiated role to build differentiated skills. So I went into a commercial role and an experience I never ever had historically. So a lot of change altogether. Now, what I will tell you is there were moments in that year that I spent in the UK where I was completely out of my depth. But having said that, I was really lucky to have a phenomenal leader back then and leaders who supported me and teams who supported me with this major transition that I went through. So that was one. And I also learned about the concept of really stretching for success. And had I not been in that zone or many zones of discomfort, I don't think I would have grown and accelerated the way I did. So when I reflect back, it was an amazing, amazing professional experience and something I often do encourage anyone in corporate or even wherever you might be in your career in the industry or role is if you have an opportunity to take a plunge and relocate with your organization and get some international experience, grab it. It is such an amazing experience once you get there. It isn't easy, I will tell you that, but it's about the growth that you see when you come out on the other side. So that was from a professional side. I think the other turning point as well for me was how we grew as a family. Till today, we often sit back and reflect, going, wow, that was such an amazing year of experience we had. We were very intentional about the diversity of cultural experiences we wanted to have while we were in the UK, the travel and all that we got to experience together. So yeah, I think overall, the best experience I could have had and I could have asked for. But I also saw where I was able to grow and take the plunge into the unknown, and was able to figure it out when I was there and have success on the other side of it. So that was one of the critical moments in my career that will always stay with me till today.
That's a great story. You mentioned that you stayed there for a year, right?
Yes.
Okay, amazing. All right. Actually, you answered my next question beautifully. So I'm going to jump to the fourth question,
Sure.
which is, what are some of the most important leadership lessons that you've learned throughout your career? And I'm sure there's many.
Ooh, yes. So, there have been quite a few. If I just think of two of them, two of the biggest leadership lessons for me, one has been really a test of resilience. And it's resilience as a critical skill set that I've needed to tap into in all of my roles, people leadership, team leadership roles that I've had, because it's a muscle that I constantly had to train. It's it wasn't it's about being able to really bounce back through all of the challenges that I faced, and I think that is one of the biggest leadership lessons that I learned a little later in my career, if I'm honest, but one that I wish I'd learned earlier as well, in how do we build the ability to cope mentally, physically, and emotionally, because life's a marathon, and it you need to be able to have this muscle built and trained over time. And that's, I think, one of the biggest leadership lessons I've carried forward with me over the years. I think the second one for me is constantly keeping that flame of curiosity burning for me, and the desire to constantly learn and make the progress of self-development. So I've lived life for as long as I've known to be a lifelong learner. I love learning and I love self-development. And it's not just professionally, but it's personally as well, in the journeys that I've taken and invested in my own personal self-development. And I think that's what keeps me humble. It keeps me current, and just something that lights me up every day that I can wake up. And I think that's just something that I will take with me for years to come, because I really get energized by just learning and being curious, and learning to be a student constantly is something that I enjoy.
Great. Thank you, Rochelle. So, another question that I have for you, Rochelle, is mentorship. And I know this is an area of interest for you. So, what are some of your key insights that you would love to share with the young talents today?
Yeah, so yeah, this is definitely a area I'm very passionate about. And what would I like to share with young talents when it comes to mentorship? So I think what I share is also based on my own experiences of having some amazing mentors along my career journey. And what I learned through that experience, and then how I share that same experience with young talents today. So I think as a mentee, right, when you are seeking out a mentor, what I often would encourage is, don't just go after the title and the seniority of mentors. Look for mentors that are going to bring you very differentiated experiences, and look to build that personal connection outside of just the titles that sometimes we tend to go after as mentees. So try to look for mentors that are going to give you diversity of thought and experience, get you to think differently, and someone who you can also take learning to. I think that's the first thing I would say. The second is, just make sure that you're intentional around, as a mentee, around what you want to get from your mentors. So some of the best mentor-mentee relationships that I've experienced is when the mentee comes in prepared, because then you've given the mentor some opportunity to say, okay, how can they bring value to the sessions you have with them? So do prepare yourself and give your mentor some time to think about where you need the guidance on, or where you might be stuck. And the second thing I would say is really ask thoughtful questions in those sessions. And also, when you follow through on any of the guidance or actions that you might have discussed, feedback to see what worked and what didn't work, right? The other point that I would share with a mentee is, I have learned the most amount from the various mentees that I've had in my career. So I would say try to see where you can add value to your mentor's professional or their personal life, because I've had the biggest learning from that. And I think that's the unlock in where the relationship can get really rich. So that's from a mentee mentor side. And I think for a mentor as well, and for anyone who's got the opportunity or has the opportunity and the bandwidth to be able to share mentorship with within their organization outside, I think it's really, really a fulfilling area because it's been we sit on so much experience and knowledge, and it's paying it forward. For me, that's a massive sense of fulfillment and something that I would encourage a lot more of us as leaders to do. So that's really where the passion comes from.
Amazing take. All right. And speaking of advice, Rochelle, what advice would you give to aspiring professionals who are just starting out in their corporate careers and especially in marketing?
Okay, so what advice would I give to the young professionals entering marketing or in their careers, right? So I think the first thing I would say is focus on the skill sets and the capabilities you want to build outside of the titles or the roles. Now, why do I say this? Is because I'm a massive believer of building differentiated skill sets early in your career. So it could be if you're entering the corporate world, for example, how do you intentionally build diversity of skills through different roles that you might be wanting to do or through stretch projects on your existing roles, but do focus with intention on diversifying your skill sets and capabilities. Then look at the breadth of different experiences. So what cross-functional roles could you get into? If there's an opportunity as you grow over the years to be able to move with your organization and take on an international assignment, 100% go for that, because it's about the breadth of experience early in your career versus the depth. Now, that's from a corporate lens. What I would also encourage, because today careers are non-linear, right? So what I would encourage today for the young talent, coming into the organizations is really think about what does success look like for you? Way beyond just compensation and status now. And, I've got my daughter's entering the workforce next year as well after she graduates from university. So this is the same advice I share with her, which is really focus on what's going to fill your cup and don't forget yourself through this equation, because a lot of the young talents today want to have an impact. They're looking at the purpose of what they get into in their careers. So really keep that at the heart of it and don't lose sight of it. I think that's important. And don't be afraid to look outside of your current organizations that you may be entering. I really would encourage you to do a couple of different industries. If you're in corporate, jump into a startup or an SME, because you will learn very different skill sets. Diversify the industry, diversify different organizations early in your career, and then at some stage you might want to start specializing in an area. That's great. But the more diversity and breadth of experience you gain early, the better I think it would serve you as the years to come. And I think that's the advice I wish I had got when I was starting off in my career around breadth versus depth.
I absolutely agree. I was just reading something about the jungle gym theory.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, this is actually really insightful.
Yeah, that's a good one because there's many ways to the top when you've
Yes,
got diversity of
exactly.
skill
It's
sets
not
versus one.
linear.
Yeah, I love the jungle gym theory. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So you were just touching up on that, but what is something that you wish you knew before starting your career?
Yeah, I think it is about let's if I just pause and reflect back, I've done two companies and absolutely loved what I had an opportunity to experience in both the organizations. But two organizations over a 25-year career. I think when I look back, I wish I had built in a lot more breadth of diverse experiences across different industries, different organizations early in my career, because I just think it would have served me quite differently looking at the stage of life I'm at right now. So I think that's one of the pieces of advice I wish I had when back then.
That's very genuine to say. I'm sure not a lot of people would say that.
Yeah, I think I was the older generation where you got into a role and you did really well and you looked at vertical
Yes.
progression. But I think if I
But I
look
love
back
that you're actually
now,
advising against that now and to
yeah,
diversify,
I
like you
think
said.
it's the power is in the breadth that you get and going into the unknown as well. I think, I tend to lean in, like I said, right? And I figure things out as they go. So I think the more we can do that, and gain from every experience. You're not always going to win in every experience you have, but at least you give yourself an opportunity to learn tremendously. And I think there's a lot that you can gain in growth there.
So that leaves us with the last question, and it's a little bit lighter. So if you win lottery and money is not a factor, what will you do with your time?
Ah, lovely. Okay, so maybe I will walk you through my vision board then, because
Okay.
if money isn't a factor and if I win that lottery,
This
then
will be
maybe some of that
easier.
can materialize sooner rather than later.
Yes.
So let's see. So I think the first thing I would see myself doing is living between maybe two countries. I love the evolution and change of environments. So I see myself as a city girl, but also living somewhere quite remote by the ocean because I love the ocean. So I think that's the first thing what I would visualize. The second is a journey I've been on over the last couple of years has been very much an inward journey of health and well-being and self-discovery as well. So I would love to do a lot more holistic well-being retreats. I've got a desire to be in the Himalayas at one stage and just experience life quite differently through that lens of going inward. So I think if I could experience a lot more holistic retreats around the world in in simplicity and in nature, that's truly where I find a lot of fulfillment. I've done one of them, but I would love to do a lot more. So I think that would be the second. And linking to that, because you'll see a theme very soon, is where I'm going with this.
There's a
One of
pattern.
my ultimate goals has always been to have a holistic wellness sanctuary or a yoga sanctuary somewhere by the ocean one
Of your
day.
own?
Yes, of my own. Yeah, I've always I practice yoga just for the last 20 years, and it's taken me a lot more inward. And I think I want to be able to give that back to the community and how I can serve back. So let's see. That's on the vision board, but you said there was a lottery and the money wasn't the issue.
Yes.
So that's my wish list out there.
This is beautiful. I'm a yoga practitioner as well, so I
Oh,
love
wow.
that.
Okay.
But
Lovely.
with work and everything, I can see why you're saying that you would like to take some time off and focus only on that because I know it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah,
Uh,
that keeps me grounded if I'm honest.
yes,
Like it's
yes,
always been
absolutely,
my go-to to go
absolutely.
inward. So
I do
I
that to
love the
just
practice of it.
calm my mind. Thank you for sharing that, Rochelle.
Thanks,
That's
Nanise.
amazing. And thank you for joining us today. I'm pretty sure our
Perfect.
audience will really enjoy this interview.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed the discussion with
Of
you.
course.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything you'd like to add?
Uh, what would I like to add? I think the one thing in terms of a quote, and I know there's questions around where the quote comes from, but I think the concept of being the change you want to see in this world and taking the ownership to do that and being proactive is something that, again, that I try to live into over the years, and it's been my guiding force over the years as well. So I think that's the one thought I would leave the listeners with, which is, try to take that responsibility and ownership to drive the changes you want to see. And they could be small changes every day that you do, first starting with yourself and then seeing the ripple effect in the world.
Beautiful. Thank you for ending this on a positive note.
Thank you. And thanks, Denise. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
You too.
Okay.